What's up, everybody? Jensen Cummings here. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. We are talking best served 179 customer service, important, sometimes missed customer service with Dan Shipp of Vibe Concepts. Dan, thank you for being on the show.
For having me, Jensen.
All right, so this channel is Best Served Fast, right? We focus on fast casual, multi-unit, ghost kitchens, franchise, growth concepts, restaurant groups. And so Dan really fits into them out. Dan Shipp is owner and managing partner of Vibe Concepts. And we're going to talk a little bit about one of your new concepts, which is a collaboration partnership with Great Divide, the Great Divide Brewery and RoadHouse. So we'll get into that a little bit. Tell all of our viewers, Vibe Concepts. What is Vibe Concepts? What are you guys all about?
Vibe Concepts is a restaurant group consisting of myself as the managing partner. I have some investors in the company who help me invest in restaurants. By having 10 restaurants, we're now doing about $30 million in sales. We're able to, by having them all under one roof, you learn the economies of scales. You have more buying power. You get more leverage from your vendor, Cisco. So we have leverage with Cisco, with rebates, stuff like that. We have our own accounting department now, rather than having to have multiple, each restaurant paying for a restaurant management company to do your book, your accounting. We have an office that we have our own full-time accountants in there doing all the stuff. They produce all of our P&Ls. So we're very tech savvy as far as computer websites. We have website designers. We have a Prim, P-R-I-M, is our marketing company. They look after our social media, all that kind of stuff. You don't realize until you start doing it with social media of a company, how much stuff behind the scenes there are that they take care of on a daily basis, with Yelp comments, with just upset customers. So they're able to kind of keep your restaurant looking good, help you with your ratings, keep those up, have a lot of influencers come in. So it's been good to have everything under one roof. And by having 10 restaurants and $30 million, it gives you a little bit of flexibility, money-wise. If a good deal comes by, you're able to do it. You're able to be a little more choosy as you're growing.
Yeah, it makes sense. I like that you're talking about kind of owning your resources. I think it's something important that is key. Also in restaurants, owners, operators, upper management leadership is wearing entirely too many hats too often, and we just don't have aces in their places. So I think that's an important thing. So 1991, you mentioned that. I want to go back even further, Dan. Take us all the way back to when you first caught the hospitality bug. When did you get into this crazy industry? What was your first job, the foray?
The funny thing was, I actually, out of college, I graduated from the University of Colorado in 1983. So I did the usual, you wait tables for a year. So I waited tables for a big company here called the Broker Restaurants, upscale steakhouse. I did that for a while. And I thought, okay, I have a college degree, so I got to try to use it. So I started selling real estate. Well, I sold real estate from 85 to 90. The 5 worst years of real estate in Colorado. Yeah. So needless to say, I'm thinking to myself, okay, this isn't going the way I had planned. So I got a job part-time managing a restaurant. So that restaurant that I part-time managed, it was just to make money. I worked there at night to make money to pay my bills because the real estate business wasn't paying off for me. I wound up 2 years later. I'd left there for a little while, and then I wound up buying it 2 years later. So that was my first restaurant experience. Quick little fun story. In 1991, I bought Spank RoadHouse. In 1992, I'm on my patio thinking, I'm pretty hot stuff. I got my own restaurant. I look down the road, and there's this guy putting up a sign on an old Dolly Madison ice cream shop. I'm going, Chipotle. Who'd open up a walk-up burrito window joint a block from me with no parking? Needless to say, $5 billion in sales later and 30 restaurants or whatever. I guess I was the one who you probably saying, "What am I?"
Right.
That was the first Chipotle. First Chipotle was a block away from us at the same time.
Unbelievable. On Evans, right, in the DU area, right?
Yeah.
Steve L.
Old Dolly Madison.
Absolutely. I think that's what a great story. And just to see that at that moment, like, that's history, literally within the context of America and within food and within Denver. So, that's super fascinating. You've done all right for yourself, though. Maybe not $5 billion.
Okay. No, I can't complain. It's been good to me also.
All right, so take us forward then, right? You have the concept of Spankies and you're looking to evolve. When do you kind of start to like really hit stride? When does it turn into, I own a restaurant or two restaurants, so like we're a restaurant group and the mentality shifts?
I'd say probably by, the first one was 99, probably by the mid to later 90s. We added on, for our first venture, we went downtown by Coors Field. We got to Coors Field 18 months before baseball got there, but they were playing at the old Mile High Stadium, which is, a few miles away. So we're nestled by Coors Field. We're doing great. So we're figuring by the time baseball gets here, it's going to take off. But so what happened was when baseball got there, there was 65 new liquor licenses with like a 6-block radius of Coors Field. So our best 18 months was actually the best 18 months before baseball got there. So we still did okay, but it wasn't like we thought when baseball got there it would be, the greatest thing since sliced bread. So we learned a little bit there. Then we opened up an Italian place by the stadium that did well, and then we started going into the mountains a little bit. And then we realized, okay, now we're kind of just babysitting 4, 5, 6 GMs, buying their own food, they have their own tap system, buying their own kind of beers. And then we realized, okay, if you're going to do this, it doesn't make sense to have all these restaurants if you can't start figuring out how to save a bunch of money by doing this. So then we went to our food purveyors. Okay, if you're getting all of this, $6 million in food purchases, what can you do? They give you pricing rebates. Same with beers. If we put 4 of your beers, whether it's Coors, Great Divide, if we put 4 of your beers in each restaurant, then all of a sudden your keg prices go from $130 to $110. So you start seeing a lot of things saved that way. You can go down your entire P&L. You look at your linen costs. You look at your all your costs you do, even your office costs with Office Depot. We now have a corporate account with Office Depot. So all of those things start to add up over the course of the year. And you can see your P&Ls all of a sudden, like last year, this was 8%, this year it's 6%. So you kind of see how it starts to, it all starts to come together as a company.
I want to go to Great Divide. Great Divide,
sure.
Iconic, 25 years. Brian Dunn, a friend, like they're just, they are, Denver Pale Ale. I mean, the name itself is like so iconic. So how does a partnership, like an organization like Great Divide, a brewery like Great Divide, a brand like Great Divide, and then Vibe Concepts, who specializes kind of in the restaurant operations side, how does that come together? Walk us through that. I'm fascinated.
So what happens is we've known Brian Dunn forever. 25 years ago when we first opened up Wazoo's on Wazee, it was called, back in 1993. One of the first beers that they made, we carried at Wazoo. So it's kind of a friend. My brother, who lives in the mountains, good friend with Brian Dunn, biking, that sort of stuff. So needless to say, so what happened was Great Divide is a great brewery. People love the beer. It goes on and on how many beers they have. So they're in the beer business. We're in the restaurant business. So they thought, okay, how do we stay in the beer business, but yet open up a nice concept, nice restaurant. So they did their homework, restaurant groups, and they came back that, Vibe Concepts, myself and my team have a pretty good stronghold in Denver. When you go to purveyors and you go to people, who's paying their bills, who's this and that, our name came up a lot. So that was very complimentary for us. We really appreciated that. So they approached us. So what we did is, with Castle Rock, which is a growing city outside of south of Denver. So they found a big space, and they said, okay, they had me meet them there, and their idea was to do this, to do that. I said, this is great. I said, you guys know the beer, I know the food. How do we do this? So what I've done is I licensed their name.
Right.
So in essence, I licensed the name Great Divide Brewery and RoadHouse, but then we, Vibe Concepts, built the restaurant and owned the restaurant and everything there. We built a small brewery there, so they brew 2 beers for us there also. But then we get 16 of their beers on tap from the big brewery. So we're buying, I think last month alone we bought 140 kegs from Great Divide. So by giving me the name, I did. The restaurant's doing fantastic. It's taken off like gangbusters. The food's really good, high praises. So it's really going well, and it's a win-win for both. They're able to increase their beer sales outside of just liquor stores and the restaurant. Have their own restaurant with us that we're I think we're probably one of their top accounts now.
Oh,
so they're really not they're not in the food business really.
So the brewery though, they're brewing 2 beers. That is their staff that's managing that.
Yes, because we figured Tony, their main brewer, he comes down to Great Divide every week, brings all the, I think we have a 3-5 barrel system, so it's a nice little. It's in the middle of the restaurant, so it's kind of a showpiece. So he comes down there, brews the beers, and then we keg 5 beers at a time, and then we're able to sell 2 beers there that they've brewed. We put them on 2 taps. The great thing about Great Divide is, if you drink other beers, all their beers are very popular. They're very good. So, and they're a solid group where they're not going anywhere. They're 25 years. They're growing, and the idea hopefully on our side is if this goes well, this is probably what I consider with the menu here, the name, the beers. I think this concept has legs to possibly do a few more. Everybody's always come up to Arvada, come over here, but everybody says that. So you never know until you do your homework.
Well, the mountains, you already have a foothold in the mountains. It makes a lot of sense to bring that brand from Denver into, Summit County, Eagle County, things like that. So that makes a lot of sense to me. Let's talk about the culinary side. Obviously, a lot of chefs watching, myself. Justin, I want to talk about Justin. I want to talk about how you bring the food concept to life. And let's use Great Divide specifically as the example. And so somebody like Justin, you have Great Divide, you have this beers, you have an iconic brand already. How then do you connect food to that brand like Great Divide?
So what we did was when we knew we were going to officially, after we signed the lease, okay, it's official, we're going to become the Great Divide Brewery and Roadhouse. So then what I do is Justin, who's culinary trained, he was originally a chef at one of my restaurants, within the last, I'd say 7 years. So what he'd done is he worked at one of the restaurants. He moved himself up to overseeing 3 of them. And then he was overseeing 6 of them. And then my director of operations resigned a couple of years ago. So Justin took over as the president of operations. So what we do then is all of our restaurants, they all have kind of different menus. But on a whole, if you have burgers on your menu, it's your number 1 seller. Unless you're, pasta or sushi or something. I mean, so what we did was, in a brewery, it's kind of a, burgers, nachos, wings type of thing anyway. Well, we wanted to bring it up a little upscale. So I took 3 of my chefs and Justin, James from T Street, and then some of the other chefs from around. And every Friday morning at 9 o'clock, we'd meet at corporate office for 2 hours every Friday morning. So the menu, we have whiteboards. There's 3 whiteboards surrounding the table. And you start writing appetizers, salads, soups, pizzas, whatever. And you figure, okay, this is what. So you start off with 6 sandwiches. By the time this is a year and a half. A year later, those 6 sandwiches are probably down to 1. So we did pizzas. We fried chicken. We got a broaster, so we sold a ton of fried chicken, lots of pizza. Nice. We decided to do steaks down in Castle Rock because the thing was people are like, nobody's doing a steak in Castle Rock or a good steak and beer. So we kind of elevated the food down in Castle Rock, and it's been a big hit. So basically what I do, it's a long process to take your chefs, your food, to get from the drawing board to get to the finished product. You don't realize how many hours really goes into your logo, to your design, to your plating, portions, walk-in coolers, all the stuff you have to design to make this thing work. So
I like this. I'm interested in this because 1, you have your ability as operators and the conceptualization side of what you do, right? I really like this process. Yes. I was getting fired up because I've developed a lot of concepts, and I always joke that we're going to write on the walls in crayon and you use the whiteboard. That makes more sense. It starts big and like childlike enthusiasm, and then you got to get it down to that 1 sandwich. I think that's an important thing that we don't do too often, is that we keep all 5, 10, 12, 72 sandwiches on that menu to like really focus that. So 1, I really like the conceptualizing side of what you're doing. The second part is being thoughtful about a brand. And so the fact that you have a brand like Great Divide, it really matters. Brand matters. People associate brand with reputation. Great Divide has an amazing reputation. And so you're siphoning some of that superpower, yet you have an immense responsibility to make sure that you deliver on that. And third, what I really like, Dan, is you thought about Castle Rock. And too often we're trying to put a round peg in a square hole in a lot of ways in restaurants. And you've pointed that out several times. You try and plug in something that's going to work near the ballpark because that's your specialty. And then you put that in Castle Rock, that misses all the time. Talk about that part of it. Thinking about creating a sense of place, a community, even though you're still understanding your strengths when it comes to Denver or the mountains, but Castle Rock is a completely different market. And if you underestimate the difference, the nuance, you're in big trouble. And we see it play out a lot of times with really quality brands that go into a market and it just doesn't work. So talk about that.
Yeah, what happened to like Castle Rock? I've known about Castle Rock because I live in South Denver, Lone Tree. Castle Rock's always been there, but it's always been considered a sleepy town. People drive from into Denver who don't want to be in Denver. So it just was like it didn't have a great reputation of community, of a small community. Then as it grows, all of a sudden you start to see when you go down. This is the new Riverwalk complex that was built by Confluence Builders. So we have 260 apartments above us in 2 different buildings, and these guys did a fantastic job, spare no expense. They knew the first floor had to be a attraction to get people in there, so they were happy that we went in there. So as you go over as you start to listen to the people in the town when they're selling you on, when you're meeting with the chambers, that kind of stuff, on what their plans are the next 3 to 5 years. And Castle Rock has a plan. Becoming a city, a town now. It's not just a little sleepy town anymore. And the big thing was, as we're growing, we need some restaurants. We need some, to come in here and spend, we spend millions and millions of dollars on this place. But by doing that, everybody is just embracing it because they were ready for it.
Dan, I love what you're talking about right now, because myself, chef-driven restaurant, always wanted to be in the hip, cool neighborhood and saw plenty of success with that. Yet I think the white space is absolutely the sleepy towns. I love that you coin it like that, because there's so many little emerging places, and we're so quick to go, they're not ready for us in the burbs. And I was like, I don't think that you're underestimating. I think we underestimate in the hospitality industry, in the restaurant industry, in kind of dynamic concepts like yourself and the chef-driven. Like, we underestimate what's happening in the suburbs, and there is mass opportunity. Real estate prices are less. You're $42 a square foot triple net in your downtown location. It's just not sustainable. The margins are razor thin. You have a potential there, and potentially you have a captive audience. To your point, the liquor license, the amount of people that have the same idea in the ballpark, Dan, I really am a big fan of that thinking. I think we need more of it. Absolutely. I want to end with the thing that we began with. We call this customer service because you're really focused on that. And when you have a restaurant group, it's easy to forget about that because you're managing so many moving parts. Yet the guest matters. Always, always, always. Customer service, we say it and we forget about it in the very next sentence. So talk about the ethos. How are you delivering on customer service? What does it mean to you?
To me, customer service it's the guest experience. When your guests, the time they walk in the door and they meet your hostess, the first people to realize is the first person you meet is your hostess. You want your hostess to be friendly. And the server, what our philosophy is, touch your table within 60 seconds. They have a napkin. So when a napkin's on the table, you know that table's been touched. So my big thing is, if you give somebody a cocktail or a drink, whatever they're drinking, if you get them that right away, they're okay if you're busy and you're running a little bit behind. As long as they have a little something, especially, they're fine. And then you're friendly with them. We like our people to talk with our customers. I see some of my people once in a while. I don't condone it. I don't promote it, but they'll have their phone out showing them pictures of their vacation or of their dog, and then talk about things like that. I think you've got, especially like in Castle Rock. A great thing too is Castle Rock, smaller town community. Everybody knows everybody there. Treat them like family. They're not, talk to them. People want to be talked to differently. Some people are, don't like to be straightforward. They don't want to mess around. You kind of get a feel for that. Others want to hear all about you, want to talk about themselves, their grandchildren. So you just kind of got to play it that way.
I could not agree more. I think one of the greatest ways I heard service or hospitality coined was a guest having everything they need and nothing they don't. And the nothing they don't part is the nuance. It's like the empty space. It's the understanding how to really personalize that experience to make sure that it is truly a guest experience. And and I like that dynamic. So Dan, I really appreciate the thinking. I really appreciate the way that you're going about this approach. I like that you're doing $30 million in sales, yet you're still thinking about the napkin on the table. That matters. The second you start forgetting about the napkin on the table and are so focused on the $30 million, right, you lose track of what matters. And I think that's super important. So any last thoughts for us? This was really great, Dan.
No, I appreciate having me on. You know, it's great to everybody's communicating now and talking. There's more podcasts. There's more people communicating, especially with, like I said, the pandemic. The more groups are being formed. How do we do this? How are we going to get back on the good graces? How are we going to reopen? You know, how are we going to? So I think the community, although it's been devastated, I think everybody's kind of now working together, forming groups, forming ideas. So let's keep everybody employed and in business.
I love it. Dan Shipp, I appreciate you being on the show. We'll let you go. Again, owner and managing partner of Vibe Concepts with things like Reavers, as you mentioned, a really cool concept in Wash Park, and then Great Divide Brewery and Roadhouse. What's happening down in Castle Rock. Again, I think really, really smart the way that you're looking at the white space and thinking about the napkin on the table. I'm gonna be telling people that story. Dan Shipp is still thinking about the napkin on the table, so don't you forget about it. All right, Dan, I appreciate you being on. Have a great day. Cheers.
Thank you much. Appreciate it.
All right. Again, Dan Shipp, owner and managing partner with Vibe Concepts, and just the way they talked about the way that they kind of attached to Great Divide. I'm very interested in this because I think that there's a huge opportunity for these kind of co-branded efforts as we see the resources being further and further stretched to be able to thoughtfully leverage a brand like Great Divide. Very, very smart, and the opportunity and massive space down there. So you have to have kind of the brand equity like Great Divide does. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there. And this channel, loving it. Best serve fast casual, multi-unit, ghost kitchens, franchise, growth concepts, restaurant groups, just thinking about the evolution of the industry as it comes to the models of restaurants themselves. So appreciate you guys as always. Best Served Podcast, 179? Customer service with Dan Shipp of Vibe Concepts. Appreciate you all as watching. As always, thank you so much. Have a great day. Cheers.